Welcome back to Super Recaps. Today I'll describe a movie from 2018, titled About Time. Watch out for spoilers ahead. Chi, the protagonist, is a determined young woman. She has a lovely singing voice and hopes to one day appear in a musical drama. Chi, on the other hand, hides a dark truth that contradicts all natural rules behind a smiling facade. She possesses a one-of-a-kind ability to determine how much time a person has left to live. It's more of a curse for her because there's nothing she can do about the deaths except wait for them to happen. She is riding the bus one afternoon when she sees a sequence of crashes on a bridge. Immediately, police and paramedics come and begin rescuing people. Because she can tell how much time the people have left, Chi sees the commotion from a different perspective than the rest of the group. Then she comes upon an elderly couple who are shaken but unharmed by the catastrophe. She observes the husband has only a minute to live as she delivers a band-aid to her wife. She stands powerless, unsure of what to do next. The man eventually has a heart attack. Chi encourages his wife to relax and enjoy the final few moments she has with him. She's delighted she was able to help even if it was only a little because her power makes her feel powerless in circumstances like this. Then it's discovered that Chi only has 167 days left. She wants to enjoy her life to the fullest now that she knows she will die in a few months. This is why she auditions for every musical production in town in the hopes of landing a part. She later goes to the hospital to see a woman named Mizo. Despite their age gap, they are close friends. Since yesterday, Mizo has started dating a man named Mr. Park. Chi notices that he only has 67 days left to live, whilst Mizo has 2 years left. She does not react to the information, yet she feels awful for them. Then she is hit by a car while she is leaving the hospital. The car is being driven by Lee, a young man who suffers from anxiety episodes and is terrified of driving. He is the son of a successful businessman and the owner of a promising entertainment firm. Chi is unharmed, but Lee blames her for being irresponsible instead of apologizing. They had an argument before he forces her to sit in a wheelchair. He wants her to be examined by a doctor so she doesn't take advantage of the situation and sue him later. As a result, she is terribly late for an audition. She asks Lee for a ride and gets into the car despite his repeated requests for her to leave. She gets behind the wheel after observing he is terrified to drive and arrives at the location in a flash. Lee finds she has taken the car keys with her when she bids him farewell. He pursues her and eventually finds himself in an auditorium. After that, we're introduced to Joe, a severe musical choreographer. He is a perfectionist who disapproves of even the best performances. Chi is nervous, yet she performs a lovely song about childhood love despite her nerves. Lee stands in the audience, awestruck by her talent. Joe, on the other hand, claims that her performance is meaningless. He demands proof that she had previously been in love. Chi becomes agitated and checks the audience. When she sees Lee, she goes up to him and gives him a quick kiss on the lips. Joe is still unimpressed, and she is turned down. On the other side, Lee is taken aback. He accuses her of attacking him and stealing his key. Before departing, Chi merely hands him the key and apologizes. Lee feels horrible about yelling at her after seeing her weep. Chi meets her best friend Sung-hee late at night, who is aware of her gift. As they converse, we learn that no matter what Chi does to save a life, it never works. Even in the best of circumstances, they will die of a heart attack or an accident. Lee is on a nice date with his girlfriend B. She is the daughter of a wealthy businessman and is an ideal match for Lee, but she is arrogant and manipulative, unlike him. Lee has proposed to her on multiple occasions, and she has always accepted the rings but never said yes. She is aware that Lee is not in love with her and wishes for him to share her feelings before marrying him. The next day, Lee will travel to China to meet with an investor. Chi is also offered a job as a diving guide in China the next morning. Before boarding the plane, she says her goodbyes to her mother and younger brother. Lee and Chi wind up living at the same villa after they arrive. Lee's secretary informs him that the next day, Jen, the investor, has scheduled them to go scuba diving. Lee can't say no to an investor, despite his fears. The group later goes scuba diving, and Lee learns that Chi is their guide. They dive into the sea and explore the ocean under her guidance. She brings everyone back up after the tour. She realizes Lee didn't follow them once everyone is on the boat. She quickly returns to the water and locates him. Lee is relieved to see her after having given up hope. They share the oxygen tube and continue to clasp their hands as they swim upwards. Chi then notices that her timer has stopped working. She looks at it in disbelief and passes out. She is inside the boat when she wakes up, and the watch is operating normally. When Lee enters the room, though, it grinds to a halt. Chi looks at him, then back at her wrist, confused. She steps away from him to see if Lee has stopped it. The timer only stops when she is close to him, as she had predicted. This means that if she stays with him, she may have a better chance of living a longer life. Chi returns to Korea with Sung-hee in the next scene. When she learns that the timer has stopped on its own, she is equally as surprised. Furthermore, Chi recalls not seeing a timer on Lee. A week later, she learns that Lee and director Joe are collaborating on a musical. It's a large-scale project with a substantial budget. Chi will be closer to Lee and will also be able to fulfill her desire if she is cast in the role. She begins her training the next day and gives it her all in preparation for the performance. Meanwhile, Lee and Joe are quietly battling for more control over the selection process. Joe doesn't want anyone else in the play, but because Lee is the organizer, he insists on coming in. Chi plays a song on the day of the audition and far outperforms her previous performance. Surprisingly, the music causes Lee to have a strange sensation in his heart, almost as if his heart is beating to the beat. He goes outside because he can't stand it any longer. Chi discovers his absence and informs Sung-hee of his absence. She devises a scheme to set her up with Lee, as she is a good friend. The audition results will be published later, but Chi had made it her goal to track Lee down and extend her life. She then goes to his office and pretends to be a contender for the position of his driver. Lee begs her to go, but she claims that she is the most qualified candidate for the job. She even follows Lee to his house and aggressively asks him out on a date after he leaves. He rejects the suggestion, but before they can continue, they are interrupted by a group of 3 males. They are Sung-hee's goons who have been dispatched to assassinate Lee. Chi was supposed to save him and win his love, but instead, they all wind up at the police station. Lee is calmed by the police officer, who asks him to remain in the waiting area. Chi falls asleep on his shoulder while waiting. Lee wants to despise her for it, but he can't stop himself from getting a warm feeling in his chest. He puts his hand on hers and rationalizes it as a way of repaying her for saving his life while scuba diving. What they don't see is that the timer in her arm reverses, prolonging rather than shortening her life. Following that, he and Chi go outside. She tries to talk to him at first, but he ignores her. But, before departing, he hands her the keys to the car and urges her to be punctual the next day. Chi has gotten a job as his driver, which will allow her to spend more time with him and extend her life. Lee smiles as he drives away, watching her celebrate. He learns everything there is to know about her the next morning. Chi was born into an affluent family, but they suffered a significant financial loss after her father was imprisoned for money laundering. Despite the fact that the family's current living conditions are not ideal, Chi is optimistic about the future. Then Lee goes outside and observes her joyfully singing while waiting for him. He doesn't show it, but simply gazing at her makes him feel a lot better. They drive to his office, and he tries hard not to stare at her the entire time. She doesn't leave his head throughout the day, driving him insane. He starts ranting at his laptop, assuming it is Chi, at one point. On the other hand, she makes every effort to remain as close to him as possible. They run into Joe later that day, who recognizes Chi from the audition. He compliments her voice and remarks on how much she has improved since the last time they met. The results have yet to be released, but Chi is overjoyed by the statement. Lee feels a sense of jealousy as she observes her mood shift. When she gushes about the director, he becomes irritated and tells her to shut up. Later, Lee notices a photograph in his office that he no longer enjoys. His assistant removes it from the wall and remarks that he does not like a painting for more than 3 months. Lee notices that if he stares at anything for a long time, he no longer finds it appealing. To get rid of his affections for Chi, he chooses to apply the same procedure. As a result, he invites her to eat with him after work. Chi is taken aback by the sudden compassion, but she decides to accompany him. He cannot stop staring at her, contrary to Lee's expectations, and he becomes increasingly frustrated. Chi is alone for a time and receives a call from her father in prison. Lee feels awful for her because he sees how much she misses him. Lee holds her arm as they go to the car after supper. Chi is taken aback as she notices the timer moving backward, but she thinks it's a crazy idea because she has accepted her death from a long time. Then Lee takes her to the movies, claiming that he needs to clear his head. Chi, being a good employee, stays close behind him. Chi wants to make sure the timer stops when she touches him while they're watching the movie. She unintentionally touches his hand, resulting in an awkward conversation. When she returns her gaze to the timer, it has reversed, just as she had predicted. Chi receives an email the next day informing her that she has not been chosen for the show. In the hallways, she runs across Joe, who claims that her voice had feelings but that she couldn't articulate them. She's a raw jewel, but for this musical, they're searching for a refined one. Chi retaliates as he begins to criticize her. She calls him a peanut and goes away, perplexing him. Lee and B run into Chi later that day, and B learns that she is the new driver. She immediately gets her guard up and invites her to join her and Lee for supper. He doesn't want to accompany them both, but Chi doesn't seem to mind. They are informed at the restaurant that only 2 in-house seats are available, so Chi will have to eat alone on the terrace. Lee requests that she go home because it appears like they are disrespecting her. She even pays for Kai's lunch with a check. Finally, Lee and B are dining together, but he can't take his gaze away from Chi. She seemed to be enjoying her dinner, which surprises Lee given she had just been humiliated. B excuses herself to use the restroom, and Lee takes advantage of the situation to visit Chi. He brings her out of the restaurant and wonders how she can stand seeing him with another woman. When he reveals that he likes her, Chi stares at him puzzled. To support the channel, subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch.